Well, I think that we're in the midst of what I would call a melt up. So, probably the next month and a half, there really isn't much quote unquote bad news that hasn't been priced in. The thing that I've learned over the last few years is that markets don't actually care what the news is.
Hi, and welcome to Wealthy Mindset. Chamath is an early senior executive at Facebook. In this video, he presented the best strategies to survive the market on the long run. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and enable notification. Let's take a look.
In a previous episode, Chamath, you talked about the psychological cycle of, ignoring good news, then accepting it, being outraged by it, and then maybe not taking the good news. In the bad news column, obviously, inflation continues. Last 6 months of CPI numbers, year over year, obviously. September 5.4. I'll fast forward to November 6.8, January 7.5, February 7.9. Excluding food and energy, core inflation still rose 6.4%. That being said, we have 11.x million jobs available for Americans, 5 or 6 million people unemployed who are looking for work. Obviously, there will be some mismatch in terms of geography and skills there. And then corporate earnings, great, but a recession possibly looming. Where are you on this? And obviously, the market's bottomed out. So where are you at with the economy? Hope, fear, and otherwise?
Well, I think that we're in the midst of what I would call a melt up. So, probably the next month and a half, there really isn't much quote unquote bad news that hasn't been priced in. The thing that I've learned over the last few years is that markets don't actually care what the news is. They can process good news and bad news equally well. What they despise is the uncertainty of what the news could be. And so this week was really important because we had two huge buckets of uncertainty taken out of the market. So the one we've already talked about, which is when the market saw that there was a surface area of a deal between Ukraine and Russia that was really constructive, because neither side would have signaled something if both parties were very far apart. So that meant to the markets, we're a few weeks out from something getting done. And then the second thing was Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. They finally had their meeting. They raised rates 25 basis points. But even more importantly, they gave you a very prescriptive forecast of what the next year will look like at a minimum, and possibly even 2 years. And once you could have that, you were able to then go and redo all of your expectations. And what people realized was, okay, inflation may actually start to get tamed in the back half of the year. The economy is still quite strong. And we could actually support 2.5% interest rates and still actually grow really well. And so what you've seen in the last 3 or 4 days is a reaction to the loss of uncertainty. And so there really isn't, the only thing, the fly in the ointment could be if the war all of a sudden escalates. Not that it gets dragged on, because at that point, that's also, I think, been priced in. But if something very meaningfully different and Russia, in this case, ratchets up the intensity by going, nuclear or something else, although I think that's a very long tail.
Chemical weapons seems a possibility, or carpet bombing.
I think these are all very, very low probability events. But in the absence of these things, you basically have really constructive dynamics right now for at least the next month and a half, maybe even 2 months.
How much of this has to do with retail investors who were YOLO, hodlers, speculators, stimmy checks, getting super active for 2 years and then maybe getting super spooked right now and maybe needing the money to deploy in their lives?
Look, the thing to remember, and I hate to be this blunt, but it's true, retail is not a very good signal of anything. In fact, if you actually look at retail flows, typically you will make money by doing the exact opposite of what retail does. And I posted this in the group chat to you guys. Every single day since the beginning of this year, retail was a net buyer. In all of those days, the market got punched in the face. Finally, at the beginning of March, retail capitulated. right? And I posted that same day and I said, guys, this is the moment to buy. And lo and behold, what happened? The markets rallied meaningfully from that point. And the reason is because they were going into the end of Q1. You have a huge tax bill due in April 15th. People were starting to just finally give up. They were buying every single day and they finally gave up. But that capitulation was the moment that you buy. So if anything, retail is the, I've said before, you fade your fade list. Retail flows are something you typically will make money by fading, by doing the exact opposite of whatever retail is doing. And you just need to have access to that information. If you have access to it, you can kind of, profit from it. So where are we going from here? Probably up.
What do you think about Chamath's view? Let me know in the comment section.